Welcome to another round of Tuesday Trivia from the International Gaming Institute at UNLV. I'm Michael Green from the History Department, and this week's question was about Harold's Club in Reno. And Harold's Club was a pioneer in the marketing of gambling in Nevada and a pioneer in a lot of other things. Harold's Club opened in 1935, and it was the Smith family's operation. Harold Sr. was a son, actually. The father was Raymond Pappy Smith, and Harold and Pappy kind of fought at times over just how the place should be operating, but Harold's Club ended up lasting for a long time. It was open until 1995. In 1970, it was sold to the Howard Hughes Corporation, then known as Suma. The building was blown up in 1999 after Harrah's took it over, and it was turned into an outdoor plaza. That's about the time the Mapes also was imploded, so Reno and Las Vegas were competing a bit to see who could implode the most casinos, I guess. Where Harold's Club had some historical significance is that it did advertise. It advertised gambling at a time in the 1930s and 40s when gambling wasn't necessarily considered something to advertise. They hired an agency in Nevada run by a guy named Tom Wilson, and the campaigns they came up with included a covered wagon showing Harold's Club or Bust, kind of like the old Pikes Peak or Bust or California or Bust for the gold rush. And they would put up signs around the country saying that. The campaign was very successful. A lot of people paid a lot of attention to it, to the point that apparently in the 1960s, Harold's Club wondered about whether NASA would be willing to take a Harold's Club or Bust sign to the moon. The answer, unfortunately, was no, and it's perhaps just as well that Neil Armstrong didn't say one small step for man, one giant leap for Harold's Club, partly because the Smiths sold it the next year. In the case of Harold's Club, one of their innovations was different kinds of games. They had something called mouse roulette. The first time you heard of it, you might have thought they were being cruel to mice on a roulette wheel, but no. The idea was that the mouse would pick a hole to run down on the game. Turned out the game could be, shall we say, made a little less than fair by rubbing a little cheese under one of the holes. In fact, though, Harold's Club was also known for fair games. They made it a point to encourage people not to gamble too much. And in years since, problem gambling and gambling too much have become major issues, including at IGI, where Bo Bernhard and Alan Feldman are very active in promoting studies of and concern about gambling too much. At the time, Harold was unusual for doing that. Harold's also put out, in the way of marketing, a series of newspaper ads about the Old West that were collected into some books called Pioneer Nevada. You can find those in libraries and bookstores to this day. They weren't entirely accurate. They tended to like cowboy and Indian stuff that didn't necessarily happen in Nevada, but fair enough. They also were known for hiring women dealers at a time that women were not being hired as dealers. At one point, in fact, the city of Reno tried to prohibit them from doing it. Harold's was also known for a theme, and that Pioneer Nevada is a suggestion of it, the Old West. They had an Old West room. They had a big mural that is now on the Reno Event Center. And they emphasized the whole idea of being in the West and looking Western, as Las Vegas casinos that opened in the 1930s did as well. But Reno back then was considered number one in casinos, and Harold's Club was the one known around the country as people came toward it saying Harold's Club or Bust.